as I just mentioned, we do record these calls for educational purposes, and wherever I'm located, if you see me, that's the area that's going to be the room that's going to be recorded. So I want to welcome you all to this Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. I'm Edwin Rutsch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and really excited to see this really great cohort that we're just starting today. Just a real thrill to see everyone here, and so grateful for your interest in empathy and building a more empathic society together. So just so thrilled that you're taking the time out of your busy week to take part in this. This cohort's going to be a fairly large cohort, one of our largest cohorts, I believe. And so we're going to need to really keep on time, keep things moving. And I'd like to get started by introducing our training team. So I'm the producer. I've connected with all of you sort of in the background and sending you emails and, setting up the cohort, so you've all interacted with me, and I'll be stepping back, doing more of the background logistics and work on the training and of this cohort. And then we have our trainer and producer trainee who's learning how to do that, and that's Rasha. If you want to wave your hands, Rasha. And then we have a group of trainers who've done the training many times. I just want to quickly introduce them. There's Celine, if we can get it, and Kathy, and Larry, and Michelle, and Bill. And I think that's it. And then we have some trainees. Oh, and me, there you are. You're down at the bottom here. Thanks, Anne, and also.
Welcome aboard. If you need a ticket, you can
please mute too if you're just joining us. And also you'll see that there's a name after a trainer, so you just know who the trainers are. And then we have people who are participants who have done the training before and are trainees, or just taking it for the second time, and they're trainees too. And for that we have, where do we have the screens are all moving around here. We have Ralph. And if you want to raise your hand, we have Melissa. And is there any other trainees that I think that's it.
Tiffany.
Oh, there, who?
Tiffany.
Tiffany, she's not a trainee in this cohort. So yeah, so, and the rest of you are participants. So just sit back and we'll do the driving for you here. So, okay, so let's get started. I'm going to now pass it on to Celine, who's going to lead us in the introductions of everyone. So take it away, Celine.
So we want to have everybody's voice at the beginning of this cohort training to come in and just say your name, where you're from, where you are, and a few words about why you are interested in the empathy circles, very, very briefly. I'm going to start with the trainers and trainees, and I'm going to start with Bill Filler.
Hi, my name is Bill Filler. I'm a retired special education teacher here in Northern California. During my work, I worked with severely emotionally challenged students and also students on the spectrum. And I just realized how every act is an act of communication, and how important it would be if students could hear each other before class. It would really help, I think, discipline problems, the school culture, and a few things. So thank you. And then if you're interested in empathy in school, I'll put my contact in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. And I'm going to go next, and after me will be Rasha. And my name is Celine Aitken. I live in the United States in Oregon. I have a background in education and mediation, and I love that Empathy Circles helps me learn to be more and more tolerant all the time. And so Rasha, and then Kathy.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here. I'm Rasha from India, and I run an organization called Empathy Matters Private Limited. So yeah, I've been with the Empathy Circles for almost a year, and it has been such a rewarding experience that I keep coming back. And so here I am. Lovely to be with all of you, and I look forward to this evening. Yeah.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Kathy and then Michelle.
Kathy Kidd from Houston, Texas. I'm a social worker / therapist and a volunteer national field coordinator for the Peace Alliance. And the first time I did the Empathy Circles, I was hooked. And now it's part of my self-care. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Kathy. Michelle and then Melissa.
Thanks, Celine. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle from Galway over in Ireland, and I joined the Building a Culture of Empathy about a year ago, and many cohorts later, I'm just realizing what an important part this is in my life. I'd originally came to the practice just from our family having been impacted a lot by suicide, and realizing like that empathy really is this medicine that can really heal many aspects of what needs to be healed in the world today. So yeah, really believe in the movement. Thanks, Celine.
Thank you. So Melissa and then Larry.
Thank you, Celine. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Melissa Fernandez. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area in the United States. I have been in healthcare for many years, and observing that as the world and technology moves our lives faster, we have forgotten to stop and listen. And that has caused a lot of misunderstanding and ill will. And I found this Empathy Circle to be an amazing method to get us to again remember to pause and listen to each other. Welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. Larry and then Anne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry in Florida, and I'm a retired occupational therapist. And this Empathy Circle has just been such an amazingly simple process to learn. And at the same time, amazingly challenging to practice in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anne and then Ralph.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm based in the UK in the southwest of England. And I'm one of the trainers, and I've been involved in empathy cafes and help run them twice a week. Largely for people within XR globally, and you're welcome to come and join us there on Thursdays or Fridays.
Thank you, Anne. Ralph and then Edwin.
Hi, I'm Ralph Galen. I'm a community minister and outreach worker, recovery coach with Immigrant City Street Ministry, which is the poorest Lawrence, Massachusetts, just north of Boston. And I swore off the news for a while, but I had to go back to it. And the news is really pretty dire in this world. And I'm looking for an antidote to Kyle Rittenhouse. And I think it's in empathy, and it's among us who are committed to communicate, no matter how tempted we are to strike back. We've got to call each other to our common humanity. Empathy circles are fabulous for that.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate. And Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin Rudge in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I would say the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and we need empathy to solve the problems. So, and this is part of it. So that's me. Thanks.
Thanks, Edwin. So I'm going to call on everybody one at a time, and I'm asking you to be very brief, just your name, where you are, and why you're interested in taking the training. And I hope you don't move from your where you are on my screen, because I want to hear from everybody. So I'm going to call on Jana first. And please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong.
Is it Shauna?
Well, no, I have Jana Weiss from New York City.
Who's muted?
Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's perfect. My name is Jana and I'm in Queens. It's the land of the Muncie Lenape and the Canarsie and possibly also the Kawa Rockaway peoples. And I know Kathy from the Peace Alliance, which is how I fell into the empathy circles. And, it's really a lovely thing. I love that it's universal and the goal to get 8 billion people empathic listening. So I'll do my best to contribute and learn to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. And then Kevin, would you introduce yourself, please? Again, we have, yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin from Philadelphia. I'm just very intrigued by the circle and its connectivity. And coming from Philadelphia, I wanted to connect to more people empathically, and I feel this is a great opportunity to learn how to do that.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And Johnny, would you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
How y'all doing? My name is Johnny. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, by way of Little Rock, Arkansas. The reason I'm interested in the training is that I'm a career psychology student with a diagnosis, and I'm coming to try to make myself a better peer mentor.
Thank you so much. And I have Jaya next.
So hi, this is Jaya from India. I want to make my community a beautiful place where people connect and people listen to each other. That's what brings me to this training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you that it's nighttime, I especially appreciate your coming to our circles. Shauna is next on my screen.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shauna Huntel. I am from Jamaica, residing in Canada. And my background is in education, but I changed into the career social service worker, and I'd like to develop this skill of empathy, both as an educator and a future social service worker.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Shauna. And Jang.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeng. I'm originally from Thailand, but I live in Brighton, England at the moment. I'm a shamanic practitioner, and I think listening is a good skill, but we forget about listening. We most focus on talking, so I think it's good to practice this skill. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Glad you're here. And Anjali.
Hi, I'm Anjali. I'm speaking from New Delhi, India. I was able to study positive moral emotions as an undergrad and as a doctoral student, and later I had education in peace and conflict. In both these fields, in positive psychology and in peace studies, I think empathy is relevant. And I was not able to get like a close understanding of how it really works in terms of how it helps listen better. So that's why I'm here to get better training on that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. And then Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a currently retired psychologist who's going back to work. And I want to up my skills because my specialty is people with substance abuse issues, and connection is the part that helps people stay sober. And so I hope to see this. I'm also certified in domestic violence. And so I hope to introduce this into prisons, domestic violence situations, family situations for addicts.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Laura. And Dina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dina Creasy, and I'm in Dallas, Texas. And as my top #1 strength finder, strength is relator. I think I want to help Empathy Circle's mission to train the 8 billion people in the world on how to be empathetic. And I also want to use it in my career. I run a healthcare program. I want to use it with my family and as a mental health coach with the clients I serve. I think it's an excellent tool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dina. Welcome. And Trey, would you introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trey from Barbados. I'm also a teacher, and I'm trying to improve my listening skills and then influence it onto others as well within the in the school system and in my personal life.
Thank you, Trey. And Vera.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Vera from Huntington Beach, and I want to become a better listener. And I think it's going to, empathy will help us make the world a better place. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Robin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I am a coach and a leadership development manager, and the company that I work for has this amazing culture, but we don't listen very well. So I want to take what I learn and carry it forward, both personally and professionally.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Krista.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Bade Otunwe, which is the Dakota homelands, so-called Minneapolis. Currently, I'm in Hayward, Wisconsin. I am an arts and culture organizer and have been working much on equity, moving into self-study, because it's not just a culture shift, it's in my body and somatic. So I think this will be super informative and helpful tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. And Tarlise.
Good morning. I am Tarlise Jones. I'm located in San Diego, California, and I'm looking to be part of the Empathetic Circle just for my own personal gain and development, to implement it in my family of teenagers, and to share it in my peer support positions, outreach, and personal development coaching.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tarlise. And Kenya.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kenya Salahuddin. I'm in New York, Orange County, New York. I am an HR executive. I'm a conflict coach. I'm a mediator. And I'm here not only to learn more about incorporating empathy in everything that I do personally in my household, but also in my career and in my practice.
Great. Thank you, Kenya. BJ. You're muted still. You need to unmute there.
Sorry about that delay. Greetings, everyone. I'm BJ Guyton. I'm in Dallas, Texas, USA. I am interested in empathy listening circles for several reasons, but what I can say is that as a transformative redress workplace mediator and internal HR consultant, it's going to help me in my business. And I'm looking forward to helping my family and my community with the skills that I gain.
Yes, thank you so much. Glad you're here. And Dwayne.
Hello, my name is Dwayne Hearn. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm currently in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I was introduced to this type of activity when I was in high school, when I was 15 years old, and I enjoyed the experience. My current interest in the Empathy Circle's facilitation training is I would like to improve my facilitation skills, and I would like to bring this activity to the community service fraternity that I'm involved with. We're the largest college-based fraternity in the country, and so I think we could have a positive impact if we could learn to listen better and share that in our process of doing community service.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dwayne. And Tiffany.
Elaine, hey everybody. I'm taking empathy so I can just be a better person. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And Payal, or how do you pronounce your name?
Payal, Payal.
Payal. Thank you, Payal.
Hi everyone, I'm from India. Is almost 12 year. I'm here the second time. The first time I did this was I think in the beginning of this year, and I got hooked to what Empathy Circle brings. And I've attended some different sessions which Edwin and Lou offer. I've been practicing this at work. I've been practicing this with my 6-year-old. Sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed. So I'm just here because it's very nourishing for me.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Payal. Deirdre. Deirdre Araujo. Maybe you stepped away from your screen.
You're also muted.
And you're muted. And so I'm going to go ahead and come back to you.
Thank you for coming back to me. I'm on the ferry. So please, I'll come up in just a moment.
Okay. Heather.
Hi, good morning. I'm in Oakland on Ohlone land. It's Heather, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm a teacher, a science teacher, and also I organize with XR SFA. And so I'm here to hopefully take the skills that I learn back to my classroom and be a better listener with students, and hopefully maybe even, impart these skills to my students, and then also take it to the activist group XRSFA that I organize with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. And Floyd, would you, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Floyd, I live in Ojai, California. Empathy, let's see, I am an empath intuitive, but really the reason I'm interested in this training for, because I work with trauma survivors, I work with, I work with multicultural groups, I work with indigenous groups around the world, and I really believe that learning to listen is the key to the whole thing, not only to help each other, but to heal ourselves. So often the trauma we carry is because we're not listening. That the help is there if we listen. So thank you. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. And Altonia.
Hi, I'm Altonia Shepherd from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm doing this training because we work with various populations. I'm sorry, can you guys hear me? Some on audio on my phone. We work with various populations in my work, and I'm hoping to get all of my staff trained to be empathy facilitators and spread this work throughout the reentry services and the family support services that we provide to people.
Thank you. Thank you, Altonia. And I have Joyce next.
Hi, Joyce, she, her pronouns. I am in Bay Area, San Leandro, which is in the Bay Area on Long Island. I'm here because I'm working as an AmeriCorps Fellow on workshops for community building, and the basis for community, I think, would be learning to listen and to speak clearly to each other.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Joyce. And I'm coming back to Deirdre again.
Thank you all. The timing of today's training is such that I am on the ferry as it's docking, but my pronouns are she, they. My name is pronounced Deirdre Araujo. I'm here in the Bay Area, and I'm arriving on Ramaytush Ohlone land. And I have been working with volunteers for 30 years, but I think that there are opportunities that I've missed because I wasn't listening in a way that really helped them feel heard. And so this practice will help me in all that I do, but hopefully I'll also be creating spaces where people can feel more fully themselves. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Wow, what a beautiful group. Have I missed anybody? If so, would you please raise your little hand thing? And if not, I'm going to pass to Bill.
Hi, well, this will be very short. This is the questions and answers, and I haven't really, heard a question, but I encourage you, there's a feedback form to fill out where questions are in between sessions. And so this will be the part where we address those on a weekly basis. Just some main themed questions. And of course, you can email any one of the trainers or talk to us. And if you have a question that's not answered, we'd be happy to help you. And now I'll pass back to Edwin.
Yeah, it was Michelle, course purpose and objectives.
Thanks, Phil and Edwin. Yeah, for the course purpose and objectives, the purpose of this training and the empathy circle practice is to create a culture of empathy, and the learning outcomes we hope you'll take away from the training are that you'll understand and become familiar with the goals, values, and core structure of the empathy circle so that you can guide others through the experience. That you deepen your experience and skill of being an empathy circle facilitator, that you become aware of your strengths and learning edges as a facilitator, and to learn to respond to typical challenges that can arise in an empathy circle. And finally, that you'll leave the training having established strong bonds and a sense of community with each other, and also that you continue to support each other with your training and grow towards building a culture of empathy. And I'll pass to Larry.
All right, so I'm going to go over what we call the course arc or outline. And in the first session, the goal is to review the empathy circle practice, be introduced to some of the core values of a culture of empathy, and to experience the benefits of the practice. In the second session, we will focus on practicing the how-to introductions and begin to facilitate an empathy circle. In the third session, we will demonstrate the how-to again, and we will present more challenging circle situations if you feel like you're ready for challenges. In the fourth session, we will get more time to facilitate and discuss challenges that might arise. In the fifth session, we will integrate your learning and gather feedback from your experience. And I'll pass on to Bill.
Okay, so the empathy circle is a wonderful technique, but it is a technique. And so in order to be, sometimes you have to decide to be a little flexible or be, or set limits. And what informs us are the values. So the values are empathy. Empathy is the core of a culture of empathy, and it means sensing and feeling into the experience of others. And that includes self-empathy, is sensing and feeling into one's own experience. This is an ongoing awareness that we hope to develop. And mutuality, we aspire to reciprocal empathy between all people. Many times you'll hear people say, oh, I'm so empathetic, I feel drained. Well, that's not what we want to do. We want to create a culture of empathy. And to do that, you have to receive empathy as well. Openness, which is the more open and authentic you are, the more valuable we believe the sharing is. That doesn't mean you have to reveal everything go to TMI, but nevertheless, being open and authentic is a great skill and a great value. And then care, having a sense of what is necessary for the health, welfare, and well-being of oneself and others at the time. So this is not an exhaustive list. I'll be passing it on to Edwin, and then you put some of your values in the Mentimeter, and we'll see about that. Thanks. So Edwin, take it away.
Okay, great. So this is our values. I had asked everyone to fill out add your 3 most important values, and it's always good to just see what is the whole group's values, and because we want to really meet each other where we are. When we do empathic listening, we hear each other. You can say and share any values or feelings or ideas that you have. It's totally free speech. And so just to see some of the values that our cohort has. So we have empathy and compassion, respect and honesty and openness and love and authenticity. So there's really, you can see a wide variety of values that we have here. And what we want to do in this section, in this first session, is to talk about how our values relate to empathy. And so we're going to be talking about that. And before we do, we want to share how to do the empathy circle practice. You've all done it before, but Russia is now going to give a short introduction of how to take part in an empathy circle.
Thank you, Edwin. So I'll give you a quick summary of the process. There will be 4 active roles, right, in an empathy circle. There will be a speaker, an active listener, there will be silent listeners, and also a facilitator, right? The speaker first chooses an active listener and then can speak to them for 5 minutes, 4 or 5, depending on what time you set. So during these 5 minutes, the speaker will first say a couple of sentences and then pause for the listener to reflect back exactly what the speaker said, right? By paraphrasing or summarizing, right? The listener should not bring in any opinions, thoughts, or judgments. This is very important, right? While reflecting back what was heard, we are going to mirror exactly what was heard, right? So the speaker and listener continue back and forth for around 5 minutes or whatever time until the facilitator indicates that the 5 minutes are up, right? Then the listener now becomes the new speaker, right? And the new speaker will then, speak to the listener, and the process just continues in circles, right? So the participants who are not the speaker or the listener at a point in time will act as silent listeners or observers. If you have any comments as the silent observers, feel free to make it when your opportunity to speak comes, right? And the facilitator will guide the participants through the process, helping them if they get stuck anywhere. So also remember that the facilitator will be an active participant as well in the process. All right, with that, I'll pass it on to Anne. Thank you.
You're muted, Anne. And be sure that you took note of what she was explaining, because you'll be doing this explanation the next 2 sessions too. So yes, Anne.
Okay, thank you, Rasha. So we'll be going into breakout rooms in a moment to have an empathy circle. And that in that circle, the topic will be, and we'll probably have 5-minute turns, but the facilitator will let you know. And the topic will be on, I've just lost my thread there. How do your values relate to empathy and a culture of empathy? And either a trainer or a trainee will be the facilitator. We'll have an hour and 25 minutes almost in our breakout rooms. After that, we'll come back together and we'll have a half an hour together where we'll do a debrief and go around with each participant having an opportunity to reflect back. We'll tell you when you come back into the main room. So thank you very much. Over to Rasha and Edwin to put us in the breakout rooms.
Okay, thanks, Anne. So we created breakout rooms. In the first one, Rasha will facilitate, and I'll be in the room with you, and that will be recorded. And then they'll be with Bill, and a couple of people didn't show up. So Melissa, you'll be with Bill. and Bill will facilitate, or yeah. And
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the time?
Right now?
The time allotted per.
Oh, the time will be 5 minute turns.
All right, thank you.
Or you can change it in your group if you feel that there's not, yeah, but the facilitator can. Then this next group will be Celine, and then Michelle, and then Larry, and Anne's group, and Kathy facilitate, and Ralph facilitate. So we have, let's see, we have a bit of over an hour for this session, I think, and then we'll come back, and I'll send a 10-minute warning before we come back. So see you in the rooms, and here we go.
All right, hello. So we are the group. Hi, Tiffany. We've been in circles several times, I guess, but so happy to have Kenya, you, and Anjali as well. So great. Welcome to the circle. We have 5-minute turns. I'll be keeping time. So you know the topic, right? How does one or more of your values relate to empathy or a culture of empathy? That being said, you may also feel free to talk about anything that's alive for you right now, right? We'll be more than happy to hold space for anything that's alive for you. So with that, would any of you like to begin speaking? I can be the listener just to model the listening and then the speaking. So I can opt to be the listener. So if any of you would like to speak, be the first one to speak. So.
I'll start.
All right, Kenya, thank you. All right, I'm keeping time. So, yeah.
Really happy to be here. I am a little bit distracted because I have a kid on the way home from wrestling practice. I have a headache because I didn't eat breakfast yet. And I'm a new doctoral student, so I have a project due tomorrow. But I really wanted to be here. This was important to me. And I actually attended one of the circles, I don't know, a few months ago now, before registering for school, before everything else. And so I just wanted to keep my commitment to registering for this training and to myself.
All right. Thank you, Kenya. So what I hear you say is that you're very happy to be here. You've been a part of the circles a couple of months back, and now here you are. So I hear you also say that you feel very distracted because you have a kid who's on the way back from a wrestling practice, and you also haven't had your breakfast, so that's given you a headache. And yeah, so but you still kind of made a commitment to show up, and so here you are.
Yes, and just thinking about the prompt question, my values, I actually have 4 personal values that I live by, that I work by as an employer and manager, that I hire by, but I could only put 3 to answer the question. So, but my personal values are loyalty, honesty, trust, and respect. And just thinking about respect and how that relates to empathy, just on so many levels.
All right. So Kenya, I hear you say that you have 4 values, but you were only able to put 3 in the Mentimeter. But that being said, you also mentioned that loyalty, honesty, trust, and respect, these are your 4 values. And you're also now thinking about how respect and empathy are connected to each other.
Yes, thank you. So along the lines of respect, I mean, I think, one of the key points, the fundamentals of empathy circles is being able to listen. And I think that's a demonstration of respect. If you're intentional about listening, if you're an active listener, you're holding back your own opinions. You want to hear what the other person is saying, so much so that you're digesting it and able to kind of repeat it back in your own words. I think that's probably the epitome of respect.
All right. So what I hear you say is that during empathy circles, we need to kind of, listen to everything that a speaker is saying and reflect it back. And that to you is respect, right, for the speaker, because you have to not just listen, but also digest exactly what the person is saying and then reflect it back in their own words. So that is the epitome of respect for you.
Yes, thank you. 5 minutes is a long time. I feel fully heard.
All right, Kenya, I hear you say that 5 minutes is a long time, but you feel heard. Yeah, thank you. All right, so so I'll be the speaker now. And Anjali, would you like to be my listener? All right, thank you. All right, so anytime I think of values, the one value that is the most important to me, other than empathy, I work around empathy, and that's something that I speak about or use in my life every day. But something else that's also very important for me is courage, because I feel even to empathize with another person, courage is required to put aside your own biases, your own opinions, to put aside your own boundaries and self, and then step into somebody else's world. That takes courage, especially with certain people. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so for you, courage is also very important aside from empathy, and it really opens people to being more empathetic. And particularly, when there are difficult situations, courage is much more important. It helps us keep aside our own opinions and listen to others. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and the more I grow old, the more I realize how important courage is, not just to empathize, but even to live, right? I mean, I think as kids, we have such burdenless sort of lives where all we do is just be curious and just play around. But the more you grow up, the more you grow old in life, the more you realize that even to kind of survive some days, you need a lot of courage. You just need that to push yourself forward and just, do meaningful things. Yeah.
So over time and with age, you have realized that courage is even more important, and it is something that you find useful even when interacting with kids and in other situations. So you're appreciating it more compared to when you were younger.
Yes, that's right. So I didn't mean, or I didn't really mention while interacting with kids, but generally, like as you grow older, I just feel courage gets you going, right?
Yes, it pushes. Yeah, I think that, yeah. So,
yeah. Would you like to reflect that back to me?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So courage helps you be motivated, and it keeps you going. Yes, and that is why you find it useful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anjali. And yeah, another value that I also saw in the, cloud, the values cloud from the Mentimeter is authenticity, right? I mean, I come from a culture where we were not brought up to be very authentic. In fact, we grew up day in and day out hearing about this ideal sort of a personality that, that we must have in order to succeed in life, right? In order to succeed at school, at work. And so we grow up kind of trying to get to that ideal self, and somewhere in the process losing our own true self, right? Yeah, I'll stop there.
So you value empathy also because you try to think of it culturally and how in your culture, and which is to some extent my culture as well, but you are encouraged to be a certain way and stay in certain roles. So authenticity is lacking somewhere, and so the actual person is not able to be expressed as readily. So for you, that is important, and empathy is one way of getting to that.
Yeah, authenticity. Yeah. So yeah, and what happens is over the years, you lose that real self somewhere inside because you're focused on becoming that ideal sort of a person that society and your family and your relatives and friends and everybody wants you to be, right? So you kind of lose yourself. And honestly, it's the last several years when I actually got into the work that I'm doing around empathy that I slowly started kind of, working on myself and, especially on becoming more authentic. Yeah.
So because of being in various roles and various, ideal selves that are expected, we lose that authenticity. And so over the years, as you have been working with empathy, you have tried to revive that authenticity.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I used to feel like, there's this thread that's all tangled up in my head, and now thanks to, my work with empathy, what I try to do is just, especially self-empathy, I try to kind of, take out those threads and just place them one after the other so that there's so much more clarity in what, I need and want, my feelings, my emotions. So yeah, I'll stop there.
So authenticity expressed through empathy helps you disentangle some of what you find complicated, and so it helps you express yourself better. So
absolutely. Thank you, Anjali. I feel very heard, and with that, my time's up as well. So now you'll be the new speaker. Thank you.
So thank you. So I can talk to Tiffany. Do you want to hear? Sure. Yeah. So just to keep the conversation going, one of the values that I picked was open-minded humility, and that was something that it's kind of like tricky because the more you think about humility, the more you become conscious about it. You worry that you're going to lose it. But for me, it is really central to empathy because it helps you listen to what the other person has to say, and the self sort of takes a bit of a backseat for a bit, and then you listen to what the other person has to say, and that is central to empathy, in my opinion, to be able to listen to what the other person has to say. So having humility, but kind of like this intellectual humility, like this open-minded humility. Yeah.
Okay. Anjali, I recall you saying that it can be tricky sometimes because the more you try to be intentional about it, the more you become concerned of whether or not you're accurately doing it. But open-minded humility is related to listening, and it's so important to listen to the other person. Did I get that correct?
Yes. That's accurate, and it's also something that sort of like helps feel connected to others, because otherwise, when we are really self-focused, all our problems seem much more central, and it's like much more of a burden But when you are connected, you realize that there are at least 10 other people who have a similar life or experience going on in some other way. And so then you realize that you are not entirely alone, and you have like that sort of a cohort that you can relate to when you are empathizing. So you don't only understand what others are going through, but you better understand what you're going through eventually.
So empathy for you, it takes away from being self-centered, I believe was a word that you focused on, and then it allows you to listen to other people and connect with them. When you do that, you realize that whatever it is that you may be talking about or the topic is, you're not the only one going through that.
Yeah, so yeah, I feel heard. Do I have more time? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, I think eventually it's about being able to remove yourself from a categorized view of the world, because that's what empathy does. It makes us realize that we are sharing experiences, that we are all like stories in progress. So when I see people as stories, which is something that is enabled by empathy, it is something that helps me get rid of the categories, and I'm able to better relate to what other people are going through.
Okay, so you're saying that empathy helps you to better relate with other people. You're sharing stories, but you're connecting through that.
Yeah, so people as stories, that has been very useful to me so far. So because that's our first instinct, we categorize, but then the moment you start thinking, wait a minute, everybody is a story, then every person becomes fascinating. That self-focus goes away, and then you want to listen to that story.
Okay, so with empathy, self-focus goes away. People are stories, you get to listen to them. And then I like how you chose open-mindedness, because it looks like if I'm not mistaken, you're saying that it takes the categories or the labels.
Yes, yes, yeah. Okay. So I feel fully heard, so thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
So Tiffany, you're the new speaker now. You can choose your listener.
Okay. I don't believe Edwin has had a chance.
Listening.
Thank you. So one of my core values was, I can remember 2 out of 3, but one of the core values was respect.
Yeah, so one of your core values is respect.
Mm-hmm. I chose respect because with respect, there's validation that comes with it. And when you feel validated, you feel heard.
So respect is important to you because there's a quality of validation. And if you're validated, then you feel like you've been heard, and that's important to you.
Yes, I was learning through empathy that it's not necessarily agreeing with another person, but it is definitely validating and listening to him or her.
Yeah, so it really, you see that empathy is not like that you're agreeing with someone, but that you're seeing and validating them. And so you kind of have that greater clarity.
Mm-hmm. And so if it's not about agreeing with people, but validating them, then empathy could be practiced with anyone.
Yeah, so if empathy is just validating someone, you can empathize with anyone. You don't have to agree with them. You're just validating them.
Right. So if validating is essential to empathy, and you can practice it with everyone, then I don't really see why a lot of arguments can even happen or be successful.
Yeah, so if you just have to hear people and validate them and not agree with them, you don't understand, like, why is there so many arguments? Just empathize.
Right. I think that's the trick to not getting into it with someone or having an argument, listening to them, validating, repeating what they say, not just nodding your head, but actually repeating what they say.
Yeah, so don't just nod your head like as if you're hearing them, but actually repeat back what they're saying so they can hear and be validated.
And I'm seeing in my own relationships, like, since I've kind of started to do that when I remember to do it, a lot of times the tension breaks down.
Yeah, so your experience is that when you remember to listen, empathically listen, that there's less tension. You feel less tension happening.
Yes, I currently work in healthcare, and a lot of times people don't feel well, and then they're angry that they haven't gotten the service that they deserve. So when I show empathy and repeat it to them, it de-escalates quickly.
Mm-hmm. So being in healthcare, there's people who just have a lot of stress and feel like they're not getting the service that they need. And then when you just listen to them, reflect back what you're hearing, they just feel better.
Right. So this is what I learned. I learned that a lot of times it's not in the solution that I'm providing, because sometimes I can't help them, but it's the fact that I heard them and they feel fully heard.
It's not that it's sometimes it's not, you can't solve the problem, but it's not the problem solving that's important. It's just that they've been heard. And that's really, you see the importance of just that.
Yeah. And it's kind of dope because the tables turn, and it's like, I really didn't help them, but because they feel heard, they're like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really haven't done anything, but it's changed everything for the next person.
Yeah, so just by you listening to them, you haven't like really solved the specific problem, but they're so grateful. I'm hearing grateful that you just heard them, and they thank you and are grateful that you've listened to them, and they feel better.
Yeah, and sometimes I get carried away and I'm like, you're welcome. And like, I literally have not done anything. Well, thank you.
Yeah, so you just really, you say, yeah, you're welcome. All I did was listen to you. So you're welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the good part of all of it, that it does work, even if it doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, it does work, because even if it doesn't solve specific problems, it works and set in the sense of putting them at ease and maybe creating connection.
Yes, and I feel fully heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay, then thanks. I'll speak to Kenya. Yeah, in the values, for me, it's again, I really see empathy for me as just the core, like the core and the mutuality. It's like I think if we can have mutual empathy, we can kind of work anything out from that basic, dynamic.
Yeah, you see, oh boy, you see empathy as fundamental, right? And if folks look at it as a fundamental thing, then there could be progress or whatever it is, and on both sides. Folks,
yeah, it somehow, if people can just hear each other, they don't have to agree with each other, but if they can just hear each other, it seems to tap into some deeper underlying common humanity that people just naturally can sort of work out, given enough time, their issues and their problems. And so it's kind of amazing that can happen.
Yeah, if people just hear each other, if they just listen to one another, then, by virtue of them listening, it just gets to some space within them that allows them to, to move forward.
Yeah, I don't have to like you. I don't have to agree with you. you know, all those things. I don't have, it's just, if I can listen to you and hear you, and you can listen to me and hear me, it's like, it's almost like trust grows, care grows. It's just all these positive feelings and come up when people can just really hear each other. It's kind of quite amazing.
Yeah, just hearing one another, you know, is amazing. It doesn't mean that folks have to agree. It doesn't mean they always have to be on the same page. But if folks just listen to one another, you know, amazing things can come from it.
Yeah, it's all these positive feelings come up, like trust kind of comes up. And from the trust, the sense of care, when I really hear who you are, I start caring about you. It's just, yeah, it's just like almost this positive spiral, but we have to have that agreement that it's going to be mutual, because one-way empathy, I think, is only half of the coin. So we got to have that mutuality.
Yeah, and so when people display or demonstrate empathy, then it brings about positive and good feelings and good emotions. I'm so sorry, Edwin. I'm trying to be present.
Oh yeah, you got your child coming and all that stuff. Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
But it just starts this positive cycle, this positive spiral, I think, if we can just listen to each other.
Which I'm not doing a good job. But if we listen to each other, then it brings about positivity, and the positivity will grow. It'll help to enhance trust, which is something else that you said before, and good things come from it.
Yeah, and then just knowing people are doing the best they can to listen, have the intention to listen. They don't have to be perfect. It's just that they're there, they're trying, doing their best within all the things that they're dealing with. I mean, that's already that you're just knowing that is a big, is really helpful or feels good.
Yeah. So you're practicing empathy now. With all the drama that's going on, going on my end here, and that's really just the point of it. I mean, you recognize that folks may be dealing with things, but if you're able to just show them some grace and hear them, you don't have to be perfect when you reflect what it is that they're saying. You just recognize that you just want to make sure they know that they've been heard.
Yeah, the trying, just that they're trying. You don't have to get it perfect. It's just the trying even is very helpful or very meaningful.
And just making the effort, to hear them is meaningful. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you.
So Kenya, you're the new speaker. Yeah.
Right. You keep going. So
yeah.
I'm going to. I guess Rasha. Well, we can switch, right?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will choose Anjali to be my active listener. So, hi, Anjali. I was thinking about back to something that Rasha said, I believe it was, and that was talking more about courage as one of her values. And it gave me some pause. It was pivotal for me to hear that.
So you were thinking about something Rasha was mentioning before, and that was courage, and that gave you some new thoughts.
Yes, because I guess sometimes when I think about empathy, I'm thinking from the perspective of the listener just being able to hear what it is that the speaker is saying. But when I think about courage, I think it takes some courage, or at least on some level, courage for the speaker to even express whatever it is that they are experiencing or feeling or thinking or whatever is alive for them.
So when you think of empathy, you usually think of thinking from the perspective of the listener. But when it comes to courage, it is more relevant to the speaker because sometimes it takes courage to say certain things that are difficult.
Yes. And so thinking about courage, it brings me to not just psychological safety, but psychological bravery. Right. And so that's essentially what it is. It's courage. It's the person feeling strong enough to be vulnerable and share whatever it is that they feel or think or are experiencing.
So thinking about courage in relation to empathy makes you think of going from psychological safety to psychological bravery. And that is something that is sometimes much more important when we are talking about difficult things.
Yes. So I feel fully heard.
Okay, good. So you said, yeah, okay, good. Thank you. So should I, do we have time? Okay, so I'll talk to Edwin.
Listening.
Okay, so another value I had was, I think it was shared understanding or shared progress, because I remember debating about, what term to use. So shared progress was the main idea. And I think in empathy, that becomes really possible because it helps you step into somebody else's world while also staying in yours. And so you're able to understand how there can be ways of enabling progress, not only for yourself, but also for the person you're interacting with.
So another value for you is shared progress, that you're progressing together. And you see an advantage or benefit of empathy is that you can maintain your sense of self, and the other person has a sense of self, and you can move together with that awareness.
Yeah, so you can be aware of your experiences, but then also have a glimpse in the world of somebody else's story.
Oh, okay. So you can know your own story, your own experience, as well as have a bit of a glimpse into their story as well.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens is that once you have listened to somebody's experiences, or it happens, when you are having a long conversation, it actually relieves you from your own burdens, and in a way that becomes like a bit of like a selfish experience almost, because I've had this situation where I listened to somebody else's story for too long, and I forgot about anything that I saw as a problem. So I was listening to somebody else, and that becomes important for you for at least a period of time. So that is also useful. Yeah.
So by being empathic and listening to others, you set aside your own problems, and then that's sort of a relief not to be feeling your own struggles.
Yeah. And I think like after that, maybe the hope is that people are able to see the connections. So despite different life experiences, different continents, different places, when we listen to each other's stories, we are able to see the themes that may be similar.
Yeah, if we listen to each other's stories, no matter where we are in the world, we start seeing commonalities between our stories, and maybe there's a sense of connection, feeling of connection that happens there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like for me, another thing that was useful in learning about empathy training was like I had this tendency of mainly being an observer. So I love observing human beings, like observing people. And then when I saw that once that listening happens and most of that crucial thing happens when you are interacting, that was really fascinating to me. So I experienced that in my first 2 sessions. I don't know if you remember, but I was looking at people like this and this, and the reason I was doing that because it was like news to me, because I was so used to observing, and so it brought me in a world where, okay, you listen and then you know like 80% of the other stuff that is going on. Yeah.
Oh, so in general in your life, you're just an observer and maybe like the silent listener, but then you came into the empathy circle and it's really interactive. You're a listener, you're a speaker, you're doing these different, and it was just like amazing to you that and it sounds like it was very meaningful to have this new awareness of a new way of being.
Yes, yeah. So I feel fully heard. So
Okay,
that is all
thanks.
I have to say.
Yeah. Okay, I'll speak to Rasha then.
Yes, Edwin.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the courage, what you're saying about courage and sort of thinking about that. And it seems to be courage is sort of facing fear. You know, it's like you have fear and anxiety that instead of pushing it aside or whatever, it's like, I'm going to face those fears. I guess that's what that courage is.
Edwin, what I hear you say is that you heard me speak about courage, and you're saying that courage is basically facing one's fears, right? So a fear of whatever, like sharing or whatever. And so just setting aside, or instead of like kind of pushing it aside, just standing in front of what you fear and just facing it.
Yeah,
that's courage for
exactly. Yeah. And I think that's very powerful because it's transformative. Because when I've sensed into fear, you know, searching through my body, like, where's the anxiety? Where's the fear? And sort of going there and then sensing it, but then sharing it with someone else, saying like, hey, we had a really large cohort, you know, I'm really feeling anxious about keeping everything going. I have some real anxiety about this. And I share it, and it gets heard and it feels good.
All right. So what I hear you say is that when you've tried sensing into fear, right? When you really, you know, try to get inside yourself and see where you feel anxious, that has for you been a very transformative sort of an experience. Like you cited an example of, you know, how when you have a very large cohort, you know, just opening up, just facing that fear of, you know, what is going to happen. I mean, there are so many things to manage. So this really helps you. And when you also know that, you know, this is being heard by whoever listens to you, that just is very transformative.
Yeah, it's almost like I can feel the fear, the anxiety, and when it gets heard, it gets reflected back, it kind of opens it up, and it sort of starts dissipating, and it gets replaced by a sense of warmth and connection. Yeah.
So what I hear you say is that, you know, when you're kind of talking about your fears, right, and you're just facing it and you're just opening up about it, and it just gets reflected back to you, then what happens is you kind of feel it dissipating, right, into possibly the background, and in the process, what you feel is a sense of connection and care.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I did a dance session where I just kept looking for fears in my body, dancing and looking for fears and sort of facing them. And they would turn into, I would find it in my body, right? I could feel there's a fear, like a deep sort of anxiety that I kind of have sometimes, you know, about just relating to people kind of in the center here. But there's also sort of an intellectuality that's sort of based on fear too, like a heaviness. And it was just really amazing just to explore how all the different fears that are sitting in my body. And that takes courage. I think that takes, you know, certain courage, because it's like we naturally want to avoid fear. Yeah.
Yeah, so I heard you say that you know, how you sometimes dance, and while you do, like while you're dancing, you look inside to those places where you kind of feel fear inside, right? And then you sense that certain parts, like within yourself, are sitting very anxious, right? And so just facing that helps, and sometimes even at an intellectual level. So all these fears, they manifest in your body in some physical way, is what I sense you're saying.
Yeah.
And so, like you mentioned, the intellectual thing that kind of pulls you down or gives you this heaviness in your head and all that. So yeah, just yeah, touching base with them and opening up, it's very transformative.
Yeah,
It's very powerful.
we could actually do a series of empathy circles on facing our fears, facing our concerns, anxieties, and fears. I think would be really an interesting series. Yeah.
I hear you say that having a series of series of empathy circles on facing your fears and anxiety. You think that will be very meaningful?
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks, Rasha.
Thank you, Edwin. So yeah, it's amazing how most of the times, just at the stroke of 5, naturally, the speaker just stops. That's what happened twice. So yeah. So Tiffany, would you want to listen to me? All right. So yeah. So such beautiful things coming up. I feel there are so many valuable sort of, lessons or points just coming up in this discussion. So I'm really into it. I can feel myself kind of, excited and feeling a little up and energetic. Yeah.
So you're feeling excited right now. You're listening to what other people are saying about empathy, and you're connecting with it, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right, definitely. So yeah, and just adding on to our discussion on empathy, one other thing that I also feel is extremely important when it comes to empathizing with others is also having this genuine sort of a concern for people, right? Because without the genuine concern, empathy can also be used for manipulation or whatever. So I feel empathy should be associated, or should also have, or the person who's empathizing should also have genuine concern, genuine curiosity, and this is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with empathy, there needs to be genuine concern connected. If it is not, empathy can be used for something maladaptive, like manipulation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and some of you may have heard of this story, but it just brought up this story like somewhere around the conversation about this nephew of Sigmund Freud, right? And his name was Edward Bernays, I guess. I mean, the name's not really important. So Sigmund Freud, as we all know, is the father of psychoanalysis, and he's this really intellectual sort of a person. And so his nephew was someone just like him, very, very intellectual, very, with bright ideas. And so he used to work in PR, or public relations. So I'll stop there and then continue. Yeah.
Okay, so it brings to mind the story of Sigmund Freud, who's done extensive work with psychoanalysis, and his relationship, or what you're going to share with us about his nephew, who was also intelligent and worked in PR.
Exactly. So Edward Bernays, once was hired by the American Tobacco Company, right? Many, many years ago, at a point in time where women were not very active in social life, right? And women wouldn't smoke. And so American Tobacco Company, wanted to consult with Edward Bernays to come up with, or Sigmund Freud's nephew, to come up with an idea or some sort of a PR activity that would get, women to smoke. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Okay, so Edward, who's Freud's nephew, was recruited to work for an American tobacco company to see what was needed to be done to get more women to start smoking.
Exactly. And so what Edward did is that I think in front of, it was a very popular parade, which was being, recorded by national channels. So what he did is he asked a couple of women to kind of smoke cigarettes in front of the camera, and then and kind of projected it or advertised it as torches of freedom, right? So yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay, so Edward's idea was to, at this parade that was nationally broadcasted, to have a few women there who were smoking cigarettes and to push off this idea that this is what freedom looks like.
Exactly. And that was a time when women were looking for some way to find freedom, right? And they wanted to break shackles and just be out. And so this was so perfect that it became an instant sort of hit. And people, I mean, women everywhere started smoking because they started seeing like the act of smoking as having something to do with freedom, right? Yeah.
So after that, the associating with women's freedom was connected with smoking. And so more people started doing it. And then you saw
exactly
actresses doing it as well. Okay.
Exactly. And so this is a very beautiful example of, Edward so perfectly empathizing with, with a market, right? So beautifully empathizing. But what I feel was lacking there was genuine concern, right? With regards to all the health issues and whatnot that could result as a result of, women smoking. Yeah, I'll stop there and my time is up, but please reflect back. Yeah.
So basically, Edward, he tied freedom to increased tobacco use among women, but there was a lack. So there was obviously empathy here, but there was a lack of concern for their overall well-being.
Absolutely. So thank you. I feel very, very hurt, Tiffany. Yeah.
Thank you. Kenya, willing to listen?
I'm listening.
Okay. So one of the other things that I chose for empathy as a core value was righteousness, but I'm not sure why I chose it.
So one of your values relative to empathy is righteousness. You're not sure why you chose it, but you did.
Right. So I'm just going to take these next few minutes to explore why that might have been. And I think one of the reasons why I feel that way is because I go to church often, but I don't see where empathy is practiced as much as it could be in church.
So because we're here, you're going to use this time to process why you chose righteousness. And you go to church, but one of the things that you don't see practiced in church is empathy.
Right. I certainly think that we can get better. I think sometimes we're so solution focused that we forget to listen.
And this is an area where you all can improve because that would require you to actually listen instead of trying to solve a problem.
Right. And so in church or even in conversations with people of faith, when you talk to them, they're not really listening to validate or listen to listen. They're just like, let me think of a scripture that applies to your issue.
And so what you're finding with spiritual or religious people is that when they're listening, they're just trying to find a way to relate whatever the issue is to scripture instead of actually hearing that person.
Right. And sometimes I walk away feeling like I'm a problem to be solved and not a person to be heard.
So that doesn't make you feel fully heard. It seems like, you're maybe a project and not somebody who just wants to be heard.
Right. And I don't think that's empathy when you're listening to correct or criticize all the time. I don't think that's empathy at all.
Right. And so when folks listen to correct, when they're listening to criticize, that's not practicing empathy.
Right. However, more often than not, I do get people who just listen, and I do get the takeaway from church people that there is a genuine concern.
But that said, you do encounter people who actually want to just listen, and you are finding in church that people genuinely want to hear what you have to say.
Right. And I don't necessarily find that in other circles. So you care enough to listen, but you probably care too much in that you're trying to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm. And so you recognize that that's a good thing, but that you may not find in other communities, but and what that issue is that folks are listening to try to solve the problem instead of just hearing.
Mm-hmm. So I think probably I have like maybe 40 seconds left. I just like to take a moment to be silent and just sort of process everything.
You do have more than a minute, but yeah.
Okay.
So you wanted to take some time to just, think about what we discussed since you have a little bit of time left.
Yeah, just a process. Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I don't think that you can really practice righteousness or any form of spirituality without empathizing with people.
Right. So you can't separate spirituality or righteousness, which was one of the values from empathy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I feel fully heard. Thank you, Kenya.
Thank you. I will choose Edwin.
Listening.
So I appreciated a lot of what Tiffany just said, and actually was very grateful to have that moment of silence to process.
Yeah, so you have a real appreciation for what Tiffany was saying, as well as the moment of silence. Right,
and for me, processing or using that silence just gave me an opportunity to hear what I believe I heard subconsciously from what everybody said, but to actually just take a moment to actually hear it.
Yeah, by having that moment of silence, you're able to sort of hear more deeply what everyone is saying and be able to sort of process it more better.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that's a part of the process or the learning that maybe needs to be promoted more also. It's just in listening to people, really make an effort to hear deeply what it is that they're saying, and maybe even what they're not saying.
Maybe there should be more attention paid to hearing deeply what people are saying, even what they're not saying.
Right. Yeah. I'm still trying really hard to be present. I know I'm feeling better though. I'm feeling more engaged. I know presenteeism is a thing, but I do feel like I'm getting a little more grounded now.
You're really trying to be present, and you're feeling a little bit more present, a little bit more grounded.
Yeah. My headache is still kicking at me though. I will tell you that the headache is still there. Yeah, I am not willing to let anything interfere with me participating in this first training gathering.
Yeah, you're still dealing with the headache, but you're determined, you're committed to not let anything stand in the way of taking part in this training.
Yeah. and thinking a lot about, I guess, the communication leading up to the training. I was getting a lot of the notifications. I'm not sure if it was from LinkedIn or Facebook, but I got a lot of notifications about other cohorts and this upcoming training.
Yes, you got a lot of notices about this training and others. You're not quite sure where the notices were all coming from.
Yeah, and I also recognize that there was so much happening around me that I didn't get a chance to respond. But I appreciated the level of interest and engagement that other folks had. That they were, I mean, I believe I saw like 2 a.m. messages come in, or at least the timestamp was 2 a.m. So that says a lot about folks' interest and engagement.
Yeah, so there's you're having an appreciation that people are very engaged in this, and just seeing the level of engagement is, you're impressed by that, or it's meaningful.
Yeah. I did get a chance to take a look at the email that you sent, where you had some information and some resources, some pre-work for us to do. And I found that intriguing also.
Yeah, so maybe looking at that Rogers work or some of the pre-work, what you found interesting.
Right. The Carl Rogers, I believe was his name. Those videos were, I mean, I don't know, in each one, actually it left me wanting more. Even the one with the young man where there was a two-part, there were two parts to that exchange and that conversation. It made me want to know more about that individual and about Carl Rogers, how he just developed this skill for empathetic listening.
Yeah, so just hearing people's being listened to, you just felt the desire to learn more about them, hear more. And also I'm hearing some curiosity about Carl Rogers and how did this practice come about?
Thank you, I feel fully heard.
Okay, thanks. I'll speak to Anjali. Yeah, I really appreciate the moment of silence, because when it's your turn to do whatever you want. So I appreciated the initiative, just that let's have some silence. So that was, yeah, I could feel myself settling. I could feel sort of some tension sort of relaxing, you know.
So you really appreciated the moment of silence, and that is something that helped you settle your thoughts, and that is something that you would really want.
Yeah. I also, yeah, I'm doing a lot of the background stuff. So in terms of presence, I'm also tracking all the rooms. You know, somebody came into the room late. What happened is people lose their connection, then they come back in, then I have to sort them back in. So like Kenya, I've got sort of things happening in the background that sort of, you know, inhibits my full attention some too.
So you also had some other responsibilities like managing the background, and for example, a person walked in because they were done with their session, or something made them lose the connection, and so it is something, the silence sort of like helps you kind of give that time to settle down and things like that.
Yeah, and so another logistics was that there are several people who didn't attend who had signed up, and I think I didn't see Tiffany had signed up, but I'm really glad that Tiffany came. So I hope she's going to be attending the rest of the sessions too. So that's another logistics part.
So you were also responsible for the logistics part, and so many people who had signed up did not show up, but then Tiffany was not signed up, but then she showed up, and you really look forward to having her in the future sessions.
Yeah, I hope she can attend. So what else? I love these values. I just love hearing, because I think it's so important that what we're doing is not just some process, we're learning active listening, empathic listening, but it's really a larger vision that this sort of is a tool, a practice that really helps support. And this first session is really about that larger vision. So I think it's really important to just have that awareness that, hey, this is a larger vision for a whole culture, based on these values of mutual listening. So I think that I just see this as very important, what we're doing here to set this practice in that larger vision.
So you also like the entire idea of values, and so it makes you think of the larger vision and bringing about a culture of empathy. So that is the connecting factor for you, that larger vision.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Anjali, you'll be the new speaker, so you can select your listener. You're muted, Anjali.
Yeah, I can talk to Tiffany again. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I also really like that moment of silence. That was a really, I have attended these sessions before, and I don't remember like anyone making that choice. And it was a good one, because usually what happens is when people meet, and especially new people meet, there is this anxiety about, who is going to say what and what's going to happen. And when you have that moment of silence, it kind of brings that balance. So that's what I felt as well.
So you were saying that moment of silence brought a certain balance, because when you first enter a cohort, the focus is on who's saying what and what are you going to say. But that silence is the equilibrium.
Yeah, so it kind of like, it actually makes the group really connect, because when people are speaking, they are speaking what they have to say. But when everybody is quiet, all of a sudden they are all the same. They are in the same space. And so they are connecting to the common ideas that were expressed.
Right. So, or excuse me, that's a judgment. But what I'm hearing you saying is that when the people are all silent, then we're all on the same page for a time there, because no one is talking. So that brings like a levelness to it, if that's right.
Yeah, and then new conversations can begin, and then it kind of like it's sort of like sometimes necessary to have that time and then have conversation, and then and that way, like, that anxiety goes away, the anxiety of conversations that dissipates. Yeah.
I hear you talking about anxiety within conversations.
Yeah.
And how it goes away when there's a time to be quiet and just reflect and process.
Yeah, maybe because it makes our minds think that we are in a safe zone. So when that silence happens, it is defining the space as safe, and then the future conversation goes better. Yeah.
So that silence, that time to process, allows people to feel safe, and then you're able to move forward again.
Yeah. So that is all I have right now. So I feel fully heard. Yeah.
Okay, great. Rasha, would you be willing to listen to me?
I'd love to.
I believe the last value that I had related to empathy, I put consideration, I think.
Okay, so the last value that you had was consideration.
Yes.
Like consideration, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that's what I wrote. That's what I want to say definitely now. Consideration is when you show empathy, a person can't help but feel that you care, even if like in your story with Freud, there wasn't a genuine concern, people still probably felt that he cared enough to address freedom.
Yeah. So, consideration. Yeah. So what you're trying to say is, like in this story that I'd shared, consideration, when you're empathizing with somebody, even if there is no genuine concern, it still kind of makes people feel like they are being considered, right? That yeah.
Right, that consideration from the perspective of he put a camera on a woman. So he must have been considering women.
Yeah, so because he put a camera on women and to show them smoking. So that means he has like really considered or put consideration into exactly what women at that point in time were going through. Yeah.
Right. So it just, all of this just affirms my need to be in these circles or to really study empathy.
So all of these just reaffirm your, your will to continue being a part of these empathy circles and to also study empathy.
Right. And I'll share why. It's obviously a science if they hired him to do it. It's obviously a marketing strategy. I mean, it's good with marketing and business. It's also needful in psychology.
All right. So when you think about why, because if they hired him and he used empathy, then it obviously is a science, right? And it's required in business and in marketing, and it is also a need when it comes to psychology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if it's needed in business and in personal relationships, then it should be taught in high school, I think.
Yeah, and if it's required in business as well as in personal life, then yeah, this is a skill that must be taught in high schools. Yeah.
I would say high school or even earlier. So I would definitely agree with the need to implement it in schools and not make things like this a lost art.
Yeah, so you'd support, not just high school, like even earlier. So you would really want this to like not be a lost cause or just be lost as an art. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll make everything more successful. So this element of consideration will create an environment of being inclusive.
So you say being considerate or practicing consideration will create an environment of inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from there you can get trust and just a lot of other very good things.
And from there, you get to have trust and a lot of very important and good values and things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All that I have to say. So I think I did respect, consideration, and righteousness. Yeah.
Yeah, you did respect, consideration, and righteousness. And with that, this is all that you had to share.
Yes.
Do you feel heard, Tiffany?
I do. I feel fully heard.
Right. Thank you, Tiffany. So yeah. So Kenya, would you want to listen to me?
I'm listening.
All right. So yeah, it's beautiful how by the end of these circles, no matter what the condition is, when I join, I always feel so much better and more alive. So yeah, just that's what feels alive for me right now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing because no matter how these circles start out, by the end, you always feel you feel alive, you feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that's right. And to speak of, I also wanted to reflect on something that Tiffany had shared earlier. I think it was in the previous circle about her experiences with church, right? I mean, I come from a country where currently I see a lot of polarization in the name of religion, and it is so sad. It makes me very, very sad. In fact, to such an extent that these days I try not to follow the news, like somebody was saying in the introductory part. Like I try to do that because otherwise it just affects my entire day. I'll stop there.
One of the things that Tiffany brought up was her experiences with church, and it made you also think about you and your country and how folks can be polarized, I think you said. Right? Yeah. So that's what I heard.
Yeah.
You said more,
Yeah.
but that's what I heard.
Yeah, I said more, but even I forgot what I said. But so I do feel very heard. And then, and I feel empathy and a lot of the things, a lot of the values that we all discuss together, right? These are all key in kind of overcoming such divisions and polarizations. Yeah.
And all of the values that we shared, everything that we discussed are all important. They're all important in helping to kind of deconstruct polarization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel prejudice and judgments, these are things that really subconsciously come into us, right? I mean, the moment you look at somebody new, your mind, using all your past experiences and whatnot, just constructs some sort of, a judgment there. It's a very natural and a very subconscious or maybe even unconscious sort of a process. So that's something you cannot help, right? Prejudice just comes. And so this, and prejudice is one of the reasons why, a lot of these polarizations and divisions happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And prejudice, it exists, but because of prejudice, it's a primary cause of all of this separation and marginalization.
Yes. And I also mentioned how it's a very subconscious or, at some level, an unconscious sort of process, like the way we form judgments about everybody around us. Yeah.
And so prejudice is subconscious, and maybe even it's an unconscious thing, I think you said. But because of that, it causes us to form judgment, and that feeds polarization.
Yeah, and empathy and building conversations, I feel, is the antidote to prejudice.
Yeah. And the way to fight, the way to combat prejudice is just by having these conversations with empathy.
Absolutely. I feel very, very heard. And with that, we have 10 minutes to closing. And if all of you are okay with that, maybe we can just debrief on our experience for the last 1 hour and around 20 minutes. So something that Tiffany did some time back. So maybe we can once again, maybe take a few seconds, maybe around 30 seconds to just, think about everything that was discussed. And maybe just come up with, or just any questions you have, feel free to share that. Any thoughts that come up for you as part of like the last 1.5 hours, anything. So feel free to share that after. So let's just take 30 seconds here. All right. So, Anjali, do you want to go first?
Just the reflections. Yeah. For me, one of the other reasons I'm here for understanding empathy and empathy training is to make sure that this skill is there in each and every possible context. Because if you look at the bigger problems in the world and even the more horrible things that happen in the world, a lot of it begins with the issue of people not being able to understand the other person or being able to not humanize the other person. And so empathy is the missing factor there. So in an extreme way, sometimes I think the reason I like, these sorts of things, empathy training and this and that, is it's like a duty for me to do something for people who did not make it, people who are not alive, things like that. Because if you trace the roots, it was because there was no empathy somewhere, and they were dehumanized, and then and so that is that is one of my core motivations for a lot of the things that I engage in, is like that empathy. If that empathy was there from the get-go, a lot of the terrible things that happen later on won't happen to people. Yeah. So that's my reflection there. Yeah.
Thank you, Anjali. Yeah, Tiffany, would you want to go next? Yeah.
Sure. I was agreeing with Anjali so much. In fact, because basically what she was saying, that when there is a problem, if you were to really trace it back, empathy is at the root of it. And I was thinking about the jobs that I have quit or, like transferred from, or even the relationships I'm no longer in. When it comes down to it, it was because there was a lack of empathy there. Just not feeling heard, not feeling validated, not feeling considered. I think all of that, it's so amazing how much what all encompasses empathy. And to think, like, I spent over 30 years of my life not even being aware of the term. So yeah, I think that this is just very helpful. And I'm glad I heard all of you all's perspective on it.
Thank you, Tiffany. Kenya?
Yes, so many powerful things and powerful experiences just sitting in here, trying to work through my own challenges. One of the takeaways that I have is one of the first things that Tiffany talked about, which is, well, if folks would just practice empathy, then there would be no arguments. There wouldn't be, an opportunity for folks to argue, or because it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's just hearing what the other person has to say. And I find that sometimes, many times, folks really just want to be heard. That's the most important thing. It's not getting to the resolution. It's just being heard. And by doing so, again, that means that person is providing the other person with the level of respect that maybe they felt like they didn't have, which brought them to the conflict in the first place. So I appreciated that. The other thing I'm thinking about is many times in the few circles that I've been in, folks talk about, the global impact that empathy and empathy circles will have, or that we want them to have. And that's true. And I'll tell you, thinking about things on such a large scale is a little bit intimidating to me. It causes me a little bit of anxiety. But when I think of, because it's like an elephant, but when I think about just taking small bites of the elephant, then it makes it more realistic for me, and it makes it more practical and applicable. So yeah, that's what I'm getting from this.
Thank you so much, Kenya. Edwin?
Yeah, for me, what's coming up is, building a more empathic society, sort of one dialogue, one empathy circle, one, people coming together and talking with each other at a time. So it's, it's really for me about, I just feel really grateful everyone's, taking part, working on this, because I think it's really the solution, cultural shift towards more empathy is really what the world needs. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Edwin. Yeah, and for me, there's so much that I will be taking away. I mean, at one point I was thinking how I'd rather not be anywhere else at this moment, right? I mean, because it's really late for us in India over here. So I think around 2 weeks back, I was considering whether I should continue with the cohort, because it gets really late by the time it's over. And I was going through a lot of personal sort of hurdles. And so, I didn't know whether I'd be able to do justice coming here, but today, just being here, I'm so glad that I am a part of this group, and and each and every one of you have added so much value to this experience. And I admire the people who come here and the beautiful ideas and the values they hold. And one other thing that came up for me somewhere along the discussions was how I was thinking about maybe how in the future I shouldn't keep goals, and rather I should just have values that I'll work towards, because I feel that'll be a beautiful sort of thing to do, because we always have all these huge goals, but I feel there'll be so much meaning in kind of either connecting those goals to very strong values that need to be a part of our lives, or just working towards values, because that is definitely going to bring a lot of meaning into my life, I feel. Yeah, so these are the things that are kind of running through my head right now. Yeah, anything else, feel free to kind of speak up, or any questions. We have a minute or two, so yeah, you may feel free to even ask anything that you have. Yeah.
I just did want to check, so technical. Tiffany, did you want to take all the next sessions too? Can you attend the next 4 sessions? Tiffany, yeah, just checking.
Can I be here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. I just want to double check. Okay, great. I didn't have you on the list, so it's great that you're taking part. Very glad. So just added you.
I'll just be here and be quiet. Thank you.
No, it's be as say whatever you want. It's fine. I just it's a technical thing. I just wanted to check that. And we've got about 50 seconds before everyone else comes into the room.
Oh, okay.
Kenny and Anjali, are you taking the facilitator training for the first time, or have you already taken or joined any of the previous cohorts? Just curious.
The first cohort. This is my first round. Yeah.
So glad to have you. Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Anjali, you as well?
Yeah, this is my, I have attended, this is my facilitator formal training.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Everyone's coming back.
Is my camera on? I can't see my camera. Is it on?
Yeah.
We see
you.
Yes.
Oh.
Edwin, can you let me in so that I can get off my phone? I have asked to join.
I don't see you in the weight room. Is there somebody see the weight room? Is there?
That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back in.
I don't.
Camera's not on.
Okay, right, great. Everybody is back now. So welcome back, everyone. See, Kathy, you were going to lead this.
Yes, it is me. Can somebody paste the question in the chat for me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to take a minute each to share your experience and any insights you gained from the Empathy Circle. And so the question that we're putting out there, and you can speak to whatever is alive in you, but the question is, how did one of your values relate to empathy and a culture of empathy? again, or whatever's alive in you. And I'm going to call on people to move it along faster. Can the facilitators or trainers do the raise the hand? And I mean, in your window. Yeah. You see it, Rasha? Under reactions?
That just makes it easier
Yeah.
for Kathy to
Yeah.
select the
I'm searching for it.
participants.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, and if the trainers in each group will let me know if I miss anybody when I go to the end and say, did I get everybody? So Anjali, you're the first person on my screen. Would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I had authenticity, open-minded humility, and shared progress as the values. So we were able to talk about open-minded humility and things like that, and authenticity and other things. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Anjali. Tiffany?
I'm sorry, what were we saying again? Speaking of.
Oh, any values that came up that helped you relate to empathy or a culture of empathy or whatever's alive in you? Anything you want to talk about from the circle that helped you today?
So just inclusion and consideration, respect, those kinds of things that were needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Kenya?
Yes, mine were loyalty, honesty, and respect. And I mean, I think just by virtue of folks being empathetic or empathic, that they are demonstrating or practicing or even offering the other person a level of respect because they're intentional about it. But one of the most, I don't know, moving things that came out of the little group, the breakout group that I was in, was that in addition to us practicing, participating in an empathy circle and holding all these different roles, I got to experience it in our group. Somebody actually practicing empathy and listening and hearing, active listening in our group. So I thought it was great.
Great. Thank you, Kenya. BJ?
Yes. Okay. So we were in room 7, full of positive energy. And we marinated on several values. Some of them were family, clarity, curiosity, empathy itself, integrity, and being authentic in addition to love. So everyone in our room decided that we were uniquely individual. And I think when it comes to empathy, empathy is a uniquely individual thing that makes us stand out. So that was it.
Thank you, BJ. Charlize?
Oh, man, I was in the same circle where BJ was, and she said it perfectly. And I believe authenticity showed itself and presented itself and maintained our circle so empathetically. It was beautiful, just beautiful.
Thank you, Charlize. Dwayne?
For me, having participated in a variety of different empathy cafes and having an opportunity to observe the facilitators in practice and to begin to learn from their different techniques. For me, my experience with the group of people that I was in was that it was really I enjoyed being able to have this connection with a group of people and to be able to share things on a deep level and to just listen and share ideas. The other thing, though, the observation that I made was having participated in the democracy circle, one of the things that I think is maybe really important for any empathy circle is actually having everyone go around and speak about what's alive for them first before we begin to discuss some particular issue, whether it be the environment or democracy or something of that nature.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Floyd?
Yes, thank you. Let's see, my qualities that I picked was empathy, compassion, and integrity. But what we spoke about in our group, we really kind of took a deep sea journey into healing, into healing within our, at least I did, into healing within the community, within ourselves, and how important empathy is, not only to heal ourselves, but to heal the community as a context, and how we need a healthy community to help heal ourselves, help us to heal.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. Ira?
Yeah, this is an excellent experience. My 3 values were connection, kindness, and learning, although I did definitely resonate with everyone else's values as well when we had the discussion. And yeah, it was excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vera. Krista?
Yes, amazing experience. Feels like towards healing. The value that I highlighted for me was connection, and I felt such connection with this circle. Really am resonating with one of our partners who said truth and trust, and kind of acknowledging that I have some body work to do around trusting, and that I'm so super committed to truth, but I can feel my body getting in the way of trust. So just a lot more to unpack, but I feel grateful to begin this journey with y'all.
Thank you, Krista. Dina?
Okay, thank you. My top 3 values are passion, peace, and purpose. And so I talked about peace and purpose, and I think the Empathy Circle can help us be peaceful. And I also picked up on one of your values, Ms. Kathy, of kindness. So we want to be kind with the Empathy Circle, to have peace and minimize conflict. And I think this is a great tool to be able to do that.
Thank you, Dina. Jane?
Yeah, I had a good experience with lovely people, and we all share the same values. You know, some of the values we share the same thing, and one of participants remind me about the truth that the truth without compassion is brutal, which is it's good to remind myself about that, because sometimes I forget on speaking the truth, even though I have a compassionate, but you know, sometimes my judgmental can be on the way. So, and then we were talking about the heart and our body, and the effect of the emotional toward on our body, which is, yes, we share the same idea. So it was lovely session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Jana?
My values that I shared were honesty, kindness, and compassion. And I wasn't the only one who shared compassion. And I think the whole experience was very moving, and one of very strong interconnection, and we created, I think, a healing community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Payal?
Yes. So I spoke about some of my values of equality, of having meaningful relationships. And I thought my own experience of working with the group brought me at least a meaningful relationship piece very alive. And I enjoyed the conversation, even though it's quite late for me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Payal. Laura?
Hi, my three were honesty, emotional growth, and spirituality. And I think the thing that struck me most was the emotional growth, because I started attending this to increase my job skills, but I found that I actually needed the nurturance and the fulfillment I felt just by taking part in the circle.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Johnny?
Yes, ma'am. My three were loyalty, honesty, and compassion. Um, Upon introducing it to the group, it quickly went to self-compassion in terms of how we don't have the empathy for ourselves, or don't give ourselves the energy in the form of empathy as we give to others. And that honesty and loyalty extends to self. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be loyal to yourself before you can truly be a help to anybody else. So that's where we were.
Thank you, Johnny. Jaya?
So my three values were fairness, respect, and mutuality. And a huge learning here in the circle was like all of us came from different contexts. And all of us spoke about different things, but the connection was in the sharing and in the listening. So it was difficult at times, but yes, because of the value of mutuality, I think that was held by everybody. Trust, truth, mutuality. So it led to all these learnings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jaya. Shauna?
Yes, so for the group I was in, but before that, my three values, we spoke compassion, integrity, and of course, honesty. And it was interesting because though sharing those three values, the other values which we all shared, we realized how important it is and how it impacts, those we come in contact with. I also believe that within that room, authenticity was so pronounced, which provided a space to share and to also understand who you are, where you are, and the impact that we can have on each other within that room without being for it to be like forced. It was very natural because we showed up with our values. And so it left feeling a sense of being heard and also practicing the skills of empathetic listening.
Great. Thank you, Shauna. Kevin?
I guess in a couple words, I can say this experience has been powerful and amazing. My values that I went in with was truth, trust, and fairness. But the connectivity that comes from the environment was just mind-boggling and very emotional, that allows for a whole nother level of understanding that right now, I feel like a little baby still trying to learn.
Thank you, Kevin. Trey?
Hey, I really enjoyed listening to the other persons in my room. I think what really stood out is their values to me, kindness and authenticity, that resonated with me a lot, and I feel like that's what I like. Defining that in as it relates to culture empathy is definitely a huge takeaway for me. Yeah, I just kind of also enjoyed hearing what was alive for everyone in that space as well, how we bounce from going deep into the values and then into presence, what was alive for each person. So
Thank you, Trey. Altanya? Is it Altanya or Altonia? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. I'll come back to you. Deirdre? Oh, there you are.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I think my earbud might have died on me. But my values were being a source of and giving love, compassion, and loyalty, and listening to some of the other values like integrity and care. It made me realize that no matter what anybody's values were, they all were kind of grounded in love. You have to have some sense of love for yourself to want to share who you are authentically, what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And you have to be a source of love in order to be open enough to not only receive that, but to really be listening so you can have a better understanding of that person. So I really had that realization that this work is really just grounded in love.
And can you pronounce your name for me?
Altanya.
Altanya, great, thank you. Deirdre?
Thank you. My values are growth, curiosity, and connection. And I focused mostly on connection, but in our group, it felt like as people were noticing what their experiences were, the value of this group and this practice was really brought to the fore. Just how do we translate this experience out into the world? And I think each class we're going to learn a little bit more about that. It's made such a difference to have a place to start.
Yeah, thank you, Deirdre. Heather?
My values that I started with were empathy, inclusion, and equity. And then as I actually spoke, I realized with reflection from our facilitator that I was also valuing honesty and self-empathy. And so we talked a little bit about that in our group, and I appreciated all the reflection and a lot of shared experiences that some of the other members of my group had. So I felt like I learned a lot, and I want to also echo that I'm hoping to learn how to bring out this empathy training into the world beyond just the empathy circles. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Joyce?
Yeah, and so to echo Floyd's comments from my circle as well. So initially we just talked about the topic that was given, just our 3 values and how it relates to the empathy circles. But then we really did take a deep dive into a lot of other topics that I think we all really cared about. And I think we were able to learn a lot from each other. And then also for me, I was able to, I think, shift a lot of, like a lot of my own views. I think I feel like I got a lot out of the circle, and I'm really happy that I was able to learn from that.
Thank you, Joyce. Everybody started shifting around. Is there anybody I did not call on? Trainers, did I get everybody? Okay, great. All right. So do we want to go? What do we want to do now, Edwin?
I think we'll pass it on to Anne, right? Are you there?
Okay, great. Over to you,
Okay,
Anne.
so thank you. Thank you, Kathy. So for the closing then, let's just review a few things, but before I go on to the review, I will ask if the trainers have any comments that they would like to add at this point. Edwin.
I have one. Just a heads up that Monday we have an open intro cafe for the next 5 or 6 weeks or so. We have open intro cafes on Monday, so you can come to those. That's where we sort of open it to the community. It's drop in and you can help facilitate. So it's a place to get some practice for facilitating empathy circles. And you can see the links on the training website. And also, if you get a chance, I'll be sending out a notice about this. We have a LinkedIn event for that intro cafe. And if you could invite your friends to that, it really helps us get sort of momentum, and it kind of goes viral. So I'll send out more about that, but that's going to be a big focus. I'll probably keep bugging you, during the 5 weeks to invite LinkedIn contacts if you're on LinkedIn, and also to the event on Facebook. So that's it. That's it for me. Thanks, Anne.
Any other trainers have anything they need to say at this point? No. Okay, so let's do a review. So what we've done today is to review the core values of a culture of empathy. And we explored how our own values related to empathy and a culture of empathy. And then we all participated in an empathy circle. And next week, in session 2, what you will be doing is facilitating yourself a mini empathy circle. And as part of that, you will be delivering the how to do an empathy circle. So if you could prepare for that in the coming week, that would be better than having to do it on the hoof next week. So if you prepare how to facilitate an empathy circle instruction, and you will find information on how to do that on the website. You will also be sent an email, and in the email, you'll be given the link, which will also be in the chat in a moment, for the feedback for this session. There's a feedback survey, and it is helpful for us to develop the training. If you fill that in, please. Another thing that we would like you to do is to have an empathy buddy call with a partner who will be assigned to you in the email. So we normally do that for a minimum of 15 minutes each, and there will be instructions on the web page of how to do that, with a link to that instruction. And the reason for doing this, it's important that we have support when we're being facilitators. And this is an opportunity to develop that support. And another benefit is that you'll have people that you can have as a co-facilitator when you want to have one for the circles or cafes you do. Another task, if you are able, we recommend that you try to have an empathy circle, do an empathy circle yourself. You could do it with family or friends. And what we find is if you actually ask for people's help, say that you need to do this as part of your training, please would they help you by participating? That is often a good way to get people to come, but you might have your own way of doing it. But if you could try to do that, that would be good. And right now, it would be nice if you could post in the chat here one feeling you have as a result of being here today. So I'll give you a moment to do that. And Edwin, if you'll be happy to post the link for the feedback.
I did post it, it's in there. So if
Great,
you
thank you.
click on that link, you can do that right now and you'll have it open so that you'll be, put it in another time. Yeah, and you can ask your questions there, any questions you have, and we'll try to address those, as Bill mentioned at the beginning of the next session. And if your camera is off, if you could turn it on, we're going to do jazz hands in a minute. So I'll give you a second here to turn those cameras on.
So when you've done your feeling, if you could all put your cameras on, And we've got this tradition of all doing jazz hands and having a group photograph. So we'll let you know when we're doing it, but just give you a warning. So when all your cameras are on, it looks like they are. Let's go. Jazz hands, everybody.
Yay!
Well done,
Thank you,
everyone. And
everyone.
thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
for
you
now.
so much.
Bye. See you next week. Thank you
See you
all.
next time.
you.
Do unmute yourselves and say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone,
Happy
everybody.
holidays.
Bye.
Yeah, have a
Bye-bye.
good one.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye. Have a great week.
Bye.
So if the trainers and trainees would like to stay for our debrief, that would be lovely.
And we'll take a 3-minute break, bio break. Go ahead and then we'll be back to debrief.
So we're 3 minutes ahead, so we're back at past, yeah?
Yeah, past. Sounds good.